The ocean system. We use the ocean for recreation, transportation of goods and people, source of food, and potential source of clean energy. The dissolved components in seawater, about 3.5% of it are dissolved salts, and that includes sodium, chlorine, sulfates, magnesium, calcium, potassium, and the rest of the other dissolved salt components. There are several theories or hypotheses how the source of water of our ocean came about. Earth's ocean came about 700 million years later after the formation of the planet about 4.5 billion years ago. It is said that the ocean water came from volcanic eruption and that it might have also came from an icy asteroid bombardments. The ocean salinity is caused by weathered rocks that produces sodium, potassium, and calcium, and from the atmosphere which produces chlorine and sulfates. The ocean salinity is found to be 35 parts per thousand and is reduced in the melting of glaciers, along estuarine environment, and along river deltas, and during high precipitation. Salt can be removed from seawater by means of sea spray, evaporation, and consumption by the marine organisms to produce for their shells, bones, and teeth. The photic zone is where sunlight extends to a depth of 600 meters. This is divided into two levels. The euphotic zone, lots of light can penetrate, and dysphotic zone, the lower part of the euphotic zone. Light wavelengths mostly penetrate in the shallow water. However, it is the blue wavelength that penetrates the deepest. The aphotic zone or the midnight zone is the deepest region of the ocean. It starts from 1,000 meters down to the bottom of the ocean floor. Since there is no light that can penetrate in this level, there are also no photosynthetic plants, and only those highly specialized organisms can thrive to this kind of environment. Oceanography are oceanic studies or researches that covers topics such as ocean biology, ecosystems, circulations, seafloor geology, physical and chemical properties of our ocean. The HMS Challenger was a team of scientific expedition in 1872 to 1876. This marks the foundation of oceanic research or oceanography, which gathers data like ocean temperatures, seawater chemistry, currents, marine life, and geology of the seafloor. The TOPEX Poseidon is an oceanographic research satellite of NASA, the United Space Agency, and the French CNES. It has an altimeter that maps the ocean surface topography, as the one that you can see in the right part of the photo. Another expedition by the German research vessel, called Meteor, is an oceanic research expedition that uses an echo sounder technology in the 1920s. They mapped the ocean floor and produced the different profiles of oceanic contours, including the mid-Atlantic ridge within the 25 months of sailing. We will now explore the ocean floor. A continental shelf is a shallow water region in an ocean where some are exposed during the glacial periods. However, the equivalent of this in an island is called an insular shelf. The continental slope, on the other hand, is the end boundary of a continent where its bottom is called the continental rise. Seamounts are extinct basaltic volcano mountain peaks that does not reach the sea surface. Seamounts are usually more than 1 kilometer in height. Guyots are former seamounts that have flat-top surfaces due to erosion. Guyots are also known as table mounts due to its obvious formation. The abyssal plain are the flattest regions on Earth, found at the bottom of the ocean floor. The abyssal plains are covered with thick oceanic sediment deposits. Mid-oceanic ridges are equivalent to land mountain ranges with a valley called a rift zone. They are formed by a divergent plate boundary that causes sea floor spreading. Ridges varies from fast-spreading ridges with a rate of 100 to 200 millimeters per year, slow-spreading ridges having a rate of 20 to 40 millimeters per year, up to an ultra-slow with a rate of less than 20 millimeters per year. Trenches are oceanic depressions that are relatively narrow. These are the deepest parts of the ocean. Trenches are a result of two converging plates. The Marianas Trench is located between the Pacific and the Philippine plates and is the deepest trench known with a depth of 11,035 meters and a pressure of above 1,000 times at sea level. Oceanic waves are generated by many contributing factors like earthquakes, landslides, and wind. Wind creates the surfing waves. Waves can become due to surface tension and gravitational pull, but wave properties may include crest, trough, height, length, and periods. The wave surfing capital in the Philippines is in Siargao, and its most famous spot is called Cloud 9. A thermohealing is a phenomenon that a cold water becomes denser, and likewise it also increases its salinity. This is how the hot water or warm water is mixed into the bottom of the ocean floor. This phenomenon causes the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt, or what we call the thermohealing circulation. If you notice, ocean currents are moving streams. These streams are surface currents. They are driven by wind and surface circulation, while deep sea currents are driven by density differences or thermohealing circulation. Warm ocean currents move away from the equator and cold ocean currents move closer to the equator. The North Atlantic Gyre, also known as the Gulf Stream, is the most powerful surface current in the globe, caused by strong western winds from the coast of Florida, the North Atlantic Ocean. This carries the warm water that keeps the Northwest Europe warmer during winter. As the wind blows the surface water, this water will be displaced by the colder water from the bottom of the sea. The displacing water carries nutrients from the bottom going up to the surface. This phenomenon is called an upwelling. Tides are the rise and fall of ocean water level due to the gravitational attraction exerted between the Sun, Earth, and the Moon. Types of tides are first the spring tides, where the Sun and Moon are aligned and a stronger tidal force is generated. This happens during a full moon and a new moon. The second type of tide is called neap tide, where the Sun and the Moon are at the right angle and the Moon and the Sun's gravity are against each other, thus a weaker tidal force is generated. There are three types of tide. The first one is diurnal tide that is illustrated in here. This is the amplitude versus the time duration. And the time duration is usually in 1 day or 24 hours. When we speak of diurnal tide, it has one high tide and one low tide within that 24-hour period. When we speak of semidiurnal, is another type of tide, and it has two amplitude of high tides, that's one, and two amplitudes also of low tides. So this is the first amplitude of the same high tide and another high tide, and two amplitudes of the same amplitude of low tides. And the third type of tide is that it is a mixed tide, that is the high tide rises and the low tide drops at different levels compared to the diurnal and semi-diurnal. In the Philippines, most Catholics commemorate the festivity of Saint John the Baptist every 24th of June by drenching of water on streets, but mostly is celebrated by many on a beach, which is also a high tide phenomenon. We now come to the conceptual summary of the ocean system, and the ocean system is actually utilized by humanity as a source of food, the source of energy, and also for recreation and transportation of humans and of goods and cargoes. And the ocean system study discipline is called an oceanography, and the early expedition teams are HSM Challenger and the Meteor research vessel of Germany. And when we talk of ocean systems, these are the ocean floor and the ocean water. For the ocean floor, that is talking about the features like continental shelf, insular shelf, continental slope, continental rise, seamounts and guyots, abyssal plains, mid-oceanic ridges, reef valleys, and trenches. And for ocean water, there are two hypotheses of how the water in the ocean came about. So the first theory is that it must have came from volcanic activity, because during the formation of the planet, water is stored underneath and it was released through the series of volcanic eruptions and deposited into the atmosphere, while another theory suggests that it must have came from meteor bombardment for several millions of years. And the talking about ocean water, we'll also talk about the salinity of the ocean, that it has been dissolved from weathered rocks and also coming from the atmosphere, and we can remove salinity by the natural process of sea spray and the consumption of organism of these dissolved salts in the making of their shells, the production of bones and teeth, and also in the process of evaporation in the salt making. So these are the ways on how salt can be removed from the seawater. And in the ocean water, the temperature gradient causes current flow, and that includes the concept of thermohaline, circulation, and gyres. So next to that is the ocean water is actually divided according to the different levels by means of how light penetrates into these different levels. First is the photic zone, where light can penetrate, and the aphotic zone, also called the midnight zone, where no light can penetrate. And another one is talking about the tides, the phenomenon of tides. This is greatly influenced by the gravity and the position of the sun and the moon in relation to the planet Earth. And another one is the ocean water generates wave or waves. These are caused by wind, seismic activities, and even landslide. So the ocean water also includes the experience of upwelling that is also caused by wind action. So these are the different concepts that covers ocean system.